Good evening. It's 1813 here in Albuquerque. That's 613 for y'all, for civilians, on the next to last day of May. What time and what day I will upload this, that's a whole nother deal. I have here in my hot little hand a glass of Knob Creek. It's a store pick from Kelly Liquors here in Albuquerque, their Mountain Run location. And who knows, it, for all I know, it's at all their other stores too. It is 9 years old. It is 120 proof, $57 bottle, which is more than I could usually afford. But it's whiskey. That's what I drink. Why do I drink whiskey? Well, I don't know if it's important, but let me give you a little bit of pre-whiskey background. When I joined the Air Force in 1978, I had tasted a few things, but that was it. And then when I was in tech school at Shepherd Air Force Base, I started going to the Airmen's Club and started drinking the fruity drinks, the sweet stuff. I like the slow gin fizz. Maybe one of these days I'll have one again. I remember they tasted pretty good. And the alcohol didn't come through in the taste. And I drank that. And then when I got to Korea, because that's where I went after tech school, I started drinking beer and what they called Oscar. I think it's a kind of a cheap wine. They had grape Oscar and peach Oscar, and the peach Oscar was by far the best. And occasionally I would have something else, rum and Coke, whiskey, Coke, something like that. But I was drinking for the effect. I was drinking to get wasted. And I look back and I wonder just how stupid can a human being be? There are weekends I will never remember. And there are days where I woke up so awful sick. Why would I do that to myself? I was young and stupid, although the two are not necessarily parallel. A lot of young people are stupid, and a lot of stupid people are young. When I met my wife, my drinking dropped off considerable, but I would still get drunk periodically. And then in 1983, January of 83, I became a Christian and stopped drinking. Period. And that lasted for a number of years. Then in Marlow, Oklahoma, in 1992 or after, I became friends with a Vietnam vet who lived there. And he drank beer, and he would give me one every rare now and then, while we were over talking computers or playing computer games or what have you. And I'd never disliked beer, so I would drink it. And one time he had I don't know what brand, I don't know where it came from. All I know, it was whiskey. He called it sipping whiskey. And he had me take a sip, and I thought it tasted nasty. And indeed, at that point, I thought all whiskey tasted like turpentine. Well, come to 2021, between 79 and 2021, all I had was that one sip of whiskey. But let me take that back, between 83 and 2021, because I might have had some whiskey but after 79. And I found out that some of my ancestors in the 1860s and 70s had lived in the mountains of North Carolina and Kentucky. Well, maybe they didn't drink moonshine. Maybe they did. I suspect they did. It might be a little less likely that they made liquor, but that's a possibility, especially in the South. Right after the War for Southern Independence, the South was dirt poor. So many of the men were dead. So many of the farms were burned or otherwise devastated. So much of the livestock was slaughtered by the enemy. And Southerners, especially up in the mountains, were literally struggling not to starve. And it was a ton easier to carry a bushel's worth of liquor to market than it was to carry the bushel of corn. And the liquor you could get from a bushel of corn brought more money than the corn did. And so, in a tradition that went back before the Revolutionary War, they made liquor, and I think partly in defiance of the carpetbag authorities, they made illegal liquor because 2 or 3 times previously, but what we're dealing with now is during that war, the federal government imposed an excise tax, said you had to register your still, you had to pay your licensing fees, and when you made liquor, you had to pay a tax on it. Not when you sold it, there are technical ins and outs, but basically you had to pay a tax for making liquor. And up in the hills and the hollers, they stuck their thumb on their nose and did this and told Congress to go chew on its own nose. And when I found all this out about my daddy's people, I said, let me see if I can find out what it tastes like. Just, if nothing else, to prove to myself. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself again. I decided to see if I could find out what moonshine tastes like. Well, to this day, I don't know what it tastes like. I hadn't realized at the time just how hard it is to find moonshine. The people who make it and the people who distribute it aren't advertising on TV. What they're doing is illegal, so they're doing it underground, as it were. And I would not know who to ask somebody if he had any liquor for sale. So I have not tasted any illegal liquor. I did look around online, found out that the only liquor store website I could find was Total Wine in uptown Albuquerque. And I saw they had what they called moonshine for sale. So this was back during the Kung flu hysteria. And I wasn't going to hide my face just to pick up some liquor. So I ordered it online, walked in, picked it up, walked out because I'd already paid for it. There was a mason jar of what said it was moonshine and a couple of little bottles of Jack Daniel's Black Label and Jim Beam White Label. I decided, well, while I'm trying the moonshine, let me try whiskey and prove to myself it tastes crap. Well, it turned out that what they were calling moonshine was vodka, neutral grade in the spirit. In other words, they distilled it to such a high proof that almost all the flavor is gone. Then they watered it down to 80 proof. It was 80 proof vodka under a different name. It barely had any taste to it at all. But the Jack and the Beam did not strike me as exceptionally good, but they weren't as bad as I expected. In fact, they did taste good. Not very good, not great, but they didn't taste bad. They certainly didn't taste like paint thinner. And so I said, okay, I'll try a couple of other things, and I don't remember. Somebody outside, I think. I don't remember what all I tried, but I tried different things and found out I like whiskey. It tastes good when it's good whiskey. Here with this Knob Creek, I like the color of it. I like the smell of it. I like the taste of it. And for some reason, my palate's gone bad. The last couple of sips haven't tasted right. Maybe it's just a surfeit of whiskey today. I don't know. is I don't drink much, and so if I drink too much, maybe it just wears my palate out. Who knows? But I like it. Yeah, you can get vanilla, you can get caramel, butterscotch. I get sometimes butter and bananas. My allergies are kicking up. There we go. I apologize. I sometimes get bananas. I think that's where I left off. I've gotten sweet corn. I've gotten roasting ears. I've gotten cream corn from whiskey. Then you get smoky flavors. You can get the taste of the oak. Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof has got this wonderful oaky, smoky taste to it. You drink Lineage, or I drink Lineage Texas barley whiskey, and it's like eating fruit covered in chocolate while sitting in the morning in a sunny meadow. You get all these different flavors out of it. And that's the point for me. The alcohol is part of it. You know, you can't have whiskey without alcohol. They have what they say is a non-alcoholic distilled spirits, and maybe they have got all the alcohol out of it. I don't know. But I don't think I'd want to try that, because part of what makes whiskey whiskey is the alcohol. But I'm not drinking it for the effect. I don't want to get drunk more than that. I want to never be drunk again. Been there, done that. You hand me the t-shirt, I'll clop you one in the teeth. That is the worst experience you can have. Well, maybe not the worst, but it's certainly a bad one. I've been there. Take it from me. It's not fun. You may think it's fun. It's not fun. If you think spewing your guts up the next morning is fun, then son, you need to get yourself a brain from somewheres. But it's just fun. You know, I sit there, I pour my whiskey, and I sit there an hour, 2 hours, just savoring the taste and savoring the aroma, and enjoying the color and watching the legs run down the side of the glass. And yeah, it's not a necessity. If it ever comes to the point where I need that money for other things, then I'll stop buying whiskey. Just like I don't buy books because I don't have the storage space for them. One thing about a whiskey bottle, you can store it a lot easier than you can store a book. But I have thought more than once as I've looked at my finances, should I stop buying whiskey? And if it ever comes to a crunch where whiskey interferes with other things, interferes with the rent or the groceries, or it starts interfering with my life, then it's gone. Because I'm drinking it for the flavor, for the aroma, for the enjoyment, and not because I have to have it, not because I want to get wasted. So that's a lot about me, probably more than you ever wanted to hear. And the whole point of this channel is not me, it's whiskey for beginners. But at the same time, there may be beginners out there who are saying, well, why should I drink whiskey? Is it just to get drunk? Or is there something more than that? I believe there is more than that. And hopefully I've made myself clear on it. And at the end of this video, you get him at 14:30. Never intended to be so long. I'm going to tell you, here's how.